Hello everyone. Something a bit different today. I've had a question from one of the regulars here on the channel, and I thought it was an interesting one. I couldn't answer it just in a quick paragraph in the community section, so I thought, let's talk about it. So you're wondering why I have the poster of the game Brave sitting here. You probably know why I like the game if you watched my video how I got into gaming. So let me just read out the question to you. Crispy asked me, "Hello Britta, I'm interested to know your opinion as someone who has got into gaming more recently," very diplomatically worded. "I see the perspectives of people who have grown up playing video games, being excited about each iteration of hardware generation. However, becoming less interested as time goes on. Gaming has hit a point, in my opinion, where the hardware will not see the massive shifts we once did, e.g. from 2D pixel art to 3D models. Now, do you feel as excited about video games as you did the first time you picked up a controller to play Brave?" Well, there are several components to this rather long question, so I will try and unpack that a bit. The quick answer is, yes, I am still as excited as the first day when I started my PS3 and with games like Brave and others. Now, before I go into the whole hardware issue and how we view games these days, let me just quickly clarify that I'm obviously at a very different time of life to most people who are playing games, who would be younger than me. Almost everybody else is younger than me, so that's a given. It is natural for younger people to go through a cycle where the hobbies and interests of their youth pale a bit, recede into the background as they enter fully into adult life, and their time is taken up obviously with a job or university, with maybe getting married or setting up a home, maybe starting a family, wanting to socialise with friends, although you can do that online, I suppose, playing games. Life becomes very full and the focus of your interests may well shift. It doesn't mean you don't really like games anymore. They're just not as important at that point. You will probably come back to them at a later stage in your life. It's something I can definitely recommend. So I see that as a natural cycle. It's not that they're growing out of games and that's it, that's the end of gaming. It might be for some people, but over the years, the comments here on the channel have showed me that people love returning to gaming and saying, "Gosh, why did I drop that? I just picked up a game again and I'm just enjoying it as much as I did back when I was 15. I rest my case. On to the hardware question, and that's a really interesting one, isn't it? It looks like we're having all these constant progressions of improvements. But as Crispy Bacon pointed out, there were some really huge changes when 3D was introduced and visuals took a huge leap forward. So will we see more big shifts in hardware? Difficult to predict, of course, but I think Crispy's quite right. Recent iterations of hardware have been more small, cumulative improvements. You want ray tracing in your games? Well, you have options now. PC, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series. But if that's not really hugely important to you, you can just sit back. It feels more like it's optional, really, because so many of the improvements that we have seen in the development of the games industry were focused on the graphics. We tend to home in on that, but we all know games are about so much more than that. I think the technical development is going to keep progressing at a fast rate, but it's not going to be the box in your lounge, that's your console, that will necessarily see a sudden explosion of innovation. There are recent improvements. It's not just the graphics, as I said. I see it more from the viewpoint of it's a computer, your console, really. The shift from the old style hard drive to the new type of disk, the SSD drives, in my opinion, has been a pretty major leap. Everybody notices once you have a new generation console like PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, or a PC, of course, they've had SSD drives for a long time, you notice the difference in speed, and suddenly your older equipment feels like a tortoise. I still remember with computing, when we got the first 5,400 RPM, revolutions per minute, hard drives in. And we all said, oh my God, that's so blazing fast. There will nothing ever be faster than that. Well, haha. Yeah. And nowadays they feel like they're crawling along. I certainly have noticed that simply performance of games and loading times especially are hugely affected by factors like the hard drive and of course other things. A lot of what goes on in the development of the consoles is sort of hidden in the architecture, the deepest layers that we as consumers don't usually look at or know that much about. We know about graphics and audio. What we see is the important thing. So I think there's still development going on that is important for gaming. And I do come across people who say that once they've made the leap to the current gen, they actually find it harder going back, putting up with the slowness of it and the not so detailed graphics, etc. It's not something that bothers me personally, but for some people that's important. Those are all, as I said, cumulative. They're not really major breakthroughs, but where I see the technology for gaming heading, we are looking at really, really major shifts. And they are to do with the technology not in the box, but out there. Your internet connection is vital. We all know that nowadays you almost can't start up a game without being connected to the internet. The speed and performance of your home connection is quite crucial these days in many cases. It's becoming even more important because, as you all know, there is a push for cloud gaming. We already have cloud gaming. It's working. People use it on PC, on the Xbox, on PlayStation. You don't download it to your hard drive anymore. That is going to be the major shift in the future. We won't be tethered even to a console box anymore. It's just a matter of picking up a controller and having a device that is connected and has the ability to stream games from the cloud. It could be your future TV, obviously your phone, people are already doing that, or any other device, your laptop obviously, but maybe new things I haven't even thought of yet. The importance of this issue has been highlighted by the recent case of Microsoft applying to buy and merge Activision Blizzard into their operations at a huge cost. We all know that. And the recent ruling in the UK from their regulatory authority to block the deal is based on their assessment of the importance of future cloud gaming, how this is going to be like the stranglehold on the market. Whether that assessment is correct or not is beyond the scope here, but it only demonstrates how vitally important this topic is for the future of gaming. I'm just thankful that I got into gaming at a point when there was still physical media available and are to this day. I'm a bit iffy about the future. I'm happy I've got my little history of gaming on my shelves that I can pull out any time and hopefully still play in the future as long as I've got consoles that are in working order. I do everything I can to make sure they keep going. So I hope that answered that part of your question, Crispy, and anybody else who's interested. The final question was, am I still as excited as the day I first picked up a PS3 controller? And as I said, yes. I don't think long-term exposure to any type of art form and or entertainment should ever dull your enjoyment. Most of us are readers from the age we start reading. Do you, at the age of 30 or 40, sit down and think, oh, I'm bored with reading books. This new bestseller everybody's raving about, no, it doesn't really do it for me, I won't pick it up. I'd be really, really surprised. There's no book you ever get excited about that you see it in a bookshop, you get it, you rush home, sit down with a cup of tea, open the book, turn the first page. Oh, what's going to happen? I mean, if you can't feel that excitement about anything, as Samuel Johnson once so famously said in the 18th century, you're tired of life. Now, I hope that doesn't apply to anybody here, because I'm not tired of life yet, and I certainly am not tired of books or watching movies. I get impossibly excited over watching a movie I've been looking forward to, about listening to a wonderful piece of music that Poodlepath just discovered, and trust me, he discovers wonderful pieces of music every day. And games. The moment I get a new game, and it could be an old game, but it's new because I've just got it, I'm thinking, oh, I wonder what it'll be like. You know, there's that anticipation. The moment I put it in the drive, the title screen comes up. I just think, I hope it's going to be a new adventure. And I go in with that spirit. And I think that's why I enjoy so many games, because I'm just there to have a good time, to have an adventure, and sometimes to get carried along emotionally, maybe even think about some deeper issues that a game throws up. That's also important. It's the complete package. Please don't ever get blasé about games or books or anything you enjoy that provide extra meaning in your life. If we don't keep that childlike enthusiasm, we've lost something that I think is vitally important to us as humans. The telling of stories and the showing of stories is hardwired into our human brains. Now, I'm not saying that lightly, because as many of you will know, I have a background in anthropology. That was my main subject at uni. And I never stop thinking in terms of human evolution and how different ethnic groups live and see the world. I find it endlessly fascinating. And this is where the Cave of Forgotten Dreams comes in. Most of you probably haven't heard of it. It's a documentary made by the well-known filmmaker Werner Herzog, German filmmaker. He made the film in 3D. The first and only time he's ever used that medium, because he felt it was the only way he could capture what is there in this remote cave in France. The cave is called Chauvet. It's in southern France, and it contains some of the oldest human-painted images yet discovered. Some of them were crafted over 32,000 years ago. So we're talking 30,000 BC. The only other really old cave with paintings you may have heard of before is also in southern France. And that is the cave of Lascaux, has famous, beautiful paintings there. But this cave in Chauvet is different yet again, and Herzog went in under extremely difficult filming conditions. Obviously, they have to keep it pristine. There's a special atmosphere in that cave. The slightest disturbance would destroy those paintings. But he was given access and made this documentary, Cave of Forgotten Dreams. There's one way to watch that. I'm pretty sure we watched it on a service called Kanopy. I think it's a United States institution, and Kanopy provides films to the library system in various countries, and we have it here as well. So if you have a library card or account, you usually qualify for having access to that film database, and they have this documentary. I'll put all the details and more stuff in the description below the video. Okay, so you have all the info there. Now, what Herzog was able to capture was the extraordinary setup of the paintings. As the archaeologists and researchers discovered, under certain light conditions, and if you keep moving, there is an effect to these paintings. Most cave paintings picture the animals of that time, and these animals were actually moving along the cave walls. It's hard to describe. It is absolutely extraordinary. And what we have here is probably one of the first attempts at human cinema, 30,000 years BC. We picture cavemen and women as sitting around a fire, cozy in the cave, the dark winter nights, the tribal elder or someone else who is a storyteller will regale them with well-loved stories. And you might even picture them sitting listening to a story and seeing the paintings of the animals, the saber-toothed tiger, the bison, the brave hunters, and it comes to life in your imagination. What we hadn't pictured so far was people looking at the walls and in the flickering flames seeing little movie clips. My mind was blown. I had such a vivid image of what it must have been like for these people to see the life they were living outside there come back to life for them in front of their eyes. And that's what it's like for me every time I watch a great movie or every time I start up a game. Those bisons and saber-toothed tigers come rushing across the cave walls and come alive for me. That's what it feels like. Do I need the latest and greatest to be happy with my gaming? Not at all. I like grazing across all the different platform generations, and each one has something special to offer, I feel. I recently was fortunate enough to be able to get hold of Tonelico, Melody of Elimia. I'm more excited about starting this up and finally playing it than I would be about many super new fancy games. I don't care if the visuals are a bit PS2 fuzzy, and I've got a pretty good setup with a special HD cable, and it looks just fine to my aging eyesight. I recently talked about an old PS3 game with a wonderful German lady who runs a channel mainly for retro gamers. She's called Zockeromi, and she mentioned to me this game. And I said, I've never been able to get hold of that. And I was really interested in it mainly for collection purposes, because it's now quite difficult to find. But she told me that the game is actually really nice. And it's all about animals. And hey, I love animals. So I made a special effort, as luck would have it, or maybe serendipity, it popped up on our local New Zealand trading site, and I grabbed it. And I'm so thrilled to have Hakuna Matata. Now, another excitement I have is discovering new types of games. As you know, I hardly ever play shooters, and especially not first-person shooters, because I find first-person disorientating. But sometimes I give it a go. I recently got Binary Domain. I was able to pick it up cheaply, and I'd seen a trailer somewhere, and I thought this looks actually interesting. It's got a story as well. The characters looked good. I started it up, had a quick look, and I thought, gosh, I think I can really get into this. And I thought, Killzone. Killzone has a really, really good game on the Vita. That's how I know about it, Killzone Mercenary. So I thought, Shadowfall. I've really only ever heard good things about it. Okay, I give it a go. I start it up, and I get really excited because this is great. I like it. It's not too difficult, so I can play it. I've discovered something new. There's always excitement to be had. You just got to be ready to jump in and give things a go. As you probably know, I've done a video on puzzle games, and while I'm not terribly good at them, I do enjoy them. Not all of them, obviously, but the ones that are special. And I came across this one here called Tandem. That's the little girl who figures in the game. She came with a box. I was really taken with it. It works in a 3D environment, so it can be quite tricky, and it doesn't have any mechanisms that are completely new to the genre, but it's inventive enough and pleasing so that I really love going in and trying to find my way through the levels. Usually I need Poodlepa's help. He's quite good being a backseat driver, saying, no, try this one, cast a shadow that way. Yes. Now, one thing I really love doing, you've probably noticed this, is find often obscure or neglected small indie games and, discovery, this game is great. I had one such discovery with Aground. That's still in cellophane because I've got it digitally on 3 platforms. That's how much I like the game. I've even got the t-shirt. Now, Aground is really nothing to write home about in the graphics department. Visually, it's very simple and basic, but it's got a gameplay loop that is just completely addictive as far as I'm concerned. And one thing I love about it is that out of the blocks, you're not into this punishing, protracted survival game style where, you know, after 1 hour you've maybe managed to survive with one little root or something. No, you can do stuff straight away and get things and bash enemies, and it's full on. It just keeps you going. It's great. I love Aground. So older type games are just as good as newer games. The excitement factor is no different. I mean, just look at 2 recent games on the Switch I got. They're both remakes or remasters of much older games. The old Mega Man Battle Network will be my first time, so I'm really, really excited about that. And this is a remake of an ancient Wii game. And it's cute. It's fun. You know, it's a board game. You move around and do stuff and get loot and whatnot. Yeah, it's cool. But new games, like on the Switch here, are great too. And this one has absolutely gorgeous visuals. But the Switch is not very powerful hardware, as we all know, but they can manage to make things look absolutely out of this world. Who always needs fancy graphics with ray tracing? I don't. I love going back to my old Vita games. This game I thought looked absolutely ravishingly beautiful when I first started it like 10 years ago, and I still play it to this day and I still think it's beautiful. Final Fantasy X, okay, I play it on the PS4, but they ported it to the Vita, and I remember thinking, that won't work, that can't be good. Oh, I'm eating my words. This is a fantastic port. Final Fantasy X on a small handheld. I will never stop playing Dragon's Crown, never ever. I play it on the PS4 as well, but it's just perfect on the Vita. And Lumines is a really, really old game, and it's had so many ports. And this one on the Vita is probably one of the best, and it's phenomenal. The moment I start it up, I can't tear myself away. Brilliant. I'll finish with one more remake of a really old favourite, and that is Klonoa. They're all games that get my excitement pumped up, and I enjoy playing them all. Old or new, anything goes. Find pleasure in everything you do. Thank you very much for watching. I hope I answered that question sufficiently well. Please, keep well. I'm Food for Dogs. Bye-bye.